Hi everyone. I've actually just got back from the BBC. I was on Sunday Morning Live this morning, joining the wonderful Sean Fletcher and a panel of guests to talk about some new findings from the British Psychological Society about obesity. They've just published a big report. It's available on the BPS website if you're interested and want to find out more. This report suggests that we would be better talking about this as, rather than sort of labelling people as obese, we should be saying that someone is living with obesity. There seems to be quite a lot of misconception about the debate around this issue, with some people saying, hey, obesity, it's a lifestyle choice. You choose what to eat, you choose how much activity is in your life. And we know the facts around obesity being caused by eating too much, exercising too little. And therefore, some people sort of say, we should be just holding people responsible because we have an obesity crisis in this country. And I can understand that perspective. In fact, it was a perspective that was talked about quite a lot on this morning's show.
Yeah, I mean, Honey, what Lizzie says, we can dress it up as lots of things, but ultimately, if you put more calories in that you're burning up, you're going to put weight on. And that's the equation, isn't it?
Yes, but I don't think anyone's actually disagreeing with that. We're not talking about, this is not rocket science. There is an equation there. But what we're looking at is the underlying behaviours that really sort of predict that. So we're not saying that it isn't about what you consume and how much exercise you take. It's about the fact that what drives those behaviours in the first place. And actually, there are several factors at play, and it isn't a choice. Obesity is not a choice. This is something that's down to biological factors, there are psychological factors, and there are social and environmental factors as well.
Yeah. Not in all.
One of the things that as a psychologist we look at, and we look at this slightly differently, is we say, okay, yes, we understand that obesity is caused by the behaviour of overeating and under-exercising. But we need to look deeper than that at what is underlying that behaviour. So my view is that we need to be taking a biopsychosocial view.
If you have a report that says that actually it's not personal choice, aren't people who are overweight just about to say, we're going to say, well, actually, it's nothing to do with me, I can't do anything about this?
No, because it's not the same thing as saying that you can't do anything about it, but saying that you're, living with obesity is all down to willpower is just factually and scientifically incorrect. There are other things at play, biological factors, hormonal factors, genetic factors, childhood experiences.
So the BPS report actually shows that I think it was around about 50% of those people who are living with obesity actually have a genetic predisposition. They are at higher risk of obesity purely because of their biological makeup. So that's a kind of birth lottery, if you like. And then there are other really important factors to look at as well. So there are psychological factors, such as childhood experiences. One of the things that we know about obesity is that around half of the people who go for treatment for obesity or are seen in clinics with obesity support actually report having quite adverse childhood experiences, even trauma and difficulties in early life. So we know that there's something going on psychologically there. And we also know that there are psychological factors in terms of labelling, fat shaming. I'm absolutely horrified when I see people fat shaming and especially if they try to justify that as, oh, I'm trying to be helpful, you need to hear it like it is. No, fat shaming is not helpful. In fact, any kind of shaming is not helpful.
You mentioned children earlier. James Corden had something to say about this when he was responding to the American talk show host Bill Maher for saying that fat shaming should make a comeback. Let's have a look at what he said.
A lack of shame is not the issue here. If making fun of fat people made them lose weight, there'd be no fat kids in schools and I'd have a six-pack by now, right?
And in fact, what it does, if you fat shame people, is it actually makes them turn to, often for emotional reasons, they will turn to food, they will become inactive, they will retreat, if you like, and not feel empowered and motivated and able to take control over this that they're living with, these challenges that they're living with. So fat shaming is never a good idea. Shaming of any kind is never a good idea. The other thing we have to think about is the social factors. So, for example, we are influenced by the people around us, particularly in childhood, but throughout life. So we know that there are real differences in the areas that you live in the UK. We know that there are differences in terms of socioeconomic background, with those people on a lower income being more susceptible and more at risk of obesity. So there are real social factors at play, and there are environmental factors as well. You know, one of this argument that I keep hearing about, people just need to be told, we don't need to be permissive about obesity, as if that's going to fix the issue. That wouldn't explain why obesity is actually on the increase, because if fat shaming, if telling people to sort of look at what they're eating worked, and it was just a question of willpower, we wouldn't see this problem going up. So one of the things we have to think about is, what is it about our environment that is also having an influence and an impact on obesity? And I think we have to address the fact that there are differences in the kind of nutrition that people have access to, the access to opportunities for exercise. Some people's very life circumstance that is not conducive to those kind of healthy behaviors that we want to be promoting, and that is obviously linked to obesity. So we really have to be looking at that. And that means that when somebody is living with obesity, there are biological factors at play, there are psychological factors at play, and there are social and environmental factors at play. And all of those things are so important when we look at the issue of obesity, that just talking about willpower and personal responsibility and it being a simple equation of what you put in and versus what you use up in exercise really is a very naive approach to this issue. And so I'm really, really thankful that the British Psychological Society have taken hold of this issue and are saying we need to get behind the psychology of this issue if we're going to fix it. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your views, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, and I'd really love you to check out that report by the BPS.